In the study of political systems, the most significant transition a state can execute has nothing to do with passing laws. It is the moment a government discards the practice of politics in favor of the clinical application of human engineering. Traditional politics relies on the messy, unpredictable negotiation of competing interests, managed through reason and the rule of law. Absolute systems view this negotiation as a dangerous inefficiency. To a totalitarian state, human agency is nothing more than systemic friction, generated by the unpredictable nature of human will. The precise moment a state discards rational justification and substitutes clinical force for reason is known as the technical turn. By abandoning persuasion, the sovereign can manage an entire population with the exact same precision an engineer applies to inert physical components. Totalitarianism is a clinical architecture designed to engineer perfect, machine-like human predictability. This absolute governance operates on a self-reinforcing four-stage architectural schematic. The end goal of this blueprint is absolute stability, transforming a chaotic, unpredictable population into a collection of perfectly manageable variables. To understand how this system permanently traps the individual, we have to analyze how each piece of this machinery is assembled, sequence by sequence. The machinery begins here, with ontological liquidation. To achieve absolute rule, the state must first strip the individual of their legal standing. They are demoted from a subject, a participant with recognized personhood, into an object, processed entirely as raw material and state property. A subject possesses the capacity for independent action and reason. An object is divested of agency, treated as an inert component within a technical apparatus. While a subject has a private interior life where independent thoughts are nurtured, an object is characterized by absolute obedience to state directives. The historical blueprint for this ontological divide is highly visible in ancient Sparta. Sparta subjugated the Helots by systematically stripping them of all legal standing. They were not governed through social contracts. They were managed entirely through the clinical application of force. Redefining a human being as raw material is the mandatory prerequisite for a state to achieve frictionless systemic control. Once the individual is reduced to an object, the state must systematically reprogram their cognitive landscape. The sovereign operates on a singular diagnostic axiom: control the information, control the truth. The state begins with semantic engineering. By redefining language and applying restrictive labels to concepts, the sovereign effectively kills the object's ability to even conceptualize dissent. Next comes epistemic sequestration, the protocol of total isolation, actively repelling contradictory data or outside signals from reaching the population. The final truth mechanic is artificial consensus. The state injects sanctioned narratives through relentless, high-volume repetition, which flattens out and overrides the human faculty of independent critical thought. Truth ceases to be an objective reality backed by evidence. It transforms entirely into a product of pure frequency. This exact monopoly on reality was engineered by the god-kings of ancient Egypt. By declaring themselves living deities, pharaohs erased any conceptual space for independent belief systems. Roman emperors utilized the exact same mechanic to render state claims unfalsifiable. By actively manufacturing the truth, the sovereign ensures the object's consciousness becomes a perfect engineered reflection of state requirements. While the state manufactures a positive narrative, its true power relies heavily on what it actively hides. The sovereign deploys a strategic fog, a deliberate obscuration of the actual mechanisms of power and the existence of any viable alternatives to the regime. By depriving the object of accurate comparative data, the state induces a clinical paralysis of the human faculty of judgment. Without raw data to evaluate, choice is functionally deleted. What emerges is a survival logic, born exclusively from this engineered intellectual blindness. When all alternative paths are completely hidden, obedience ceases to be a moral choice driven by fear. Compliance becomes an inescapable structural necessity. Following the sovereign's directives is the only remaining map for navigating reality. To make this obedience permanent, the state must breach the final sanctuary of the individual. Absolute governance categorizes personal privacy as a dangerous defect. Any hidden interiority where unofficial truths might incubate is viewed as a form of asset corruption. The system relies on the structural property argument, where the state claims an absolute right to inspect its property at all times. This requires the protocol of epistemological prevention. The state maintains an uninterrupted view of the object, ensuring no counter-truths can incubate in the shadows. Then comes cognitive occupation. The state infiltrates and occupies the internal void left by the dismantled self. Finally, psychological eradication dissolves the boundary between the self and the state entirely. We see this mechanic clearly in the Spartan agoge, which systematically dismantled private family life in favor of total state observation. Total transparency is structurally required, because absolute authority simply cannot coexist with a private interior. These four mechanics assemble into the master logic schematics closed circuit. The erasure of privacy connects directly back to the reduction of the individual to an object, permanently preventing the return of agency. This is a self-reinforcing, inescapable machine. Reduction to object, monopoly on information, paralysis of judgment, erasure of privacy. The rigid structure of this loop guarantees that the internal sanctuary required to incubate human agency can never be recovered. This is the ultimate achievement of the clinical architecture, the permanent death of the human will. In this closed system, free choice does not simply erode, it is systematically replaced by a perfectly engineered response.